We're live. All right, awesome. What's up, YouTube? Shout out to everybody who's here early. What's up? By the way, background looks different. I'm normally downstairs in the office, but I don't got that, so this is what we got. Shout out to J Fox Art. It might be a little bit too loud. Shout out to J Fox Art for doing that amazing Daemon painting. See how we gonna do this like that? Yeah. Go follow him on Instagram. J Fox is the man. He's an artist out of England. And that Daemon painting is like my favorite thing of all time. All right, let's do this. Okay, so I need to interact with the chat more, right? And usually what I'll do is, for like the first 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so, I'll like discuss all the notes that I took. I'm gonna show y'all something. I wrote down 4 things. I was watching. I was engulfed. I was like, let me just enjoy this as a fan. The episode didn't leak online. It normally does. Last year it did. Or not last year. 2 years ago it did. It is kind of hard to start out a stream when you don't have any notes. But the big thing that I want to discuss, obviously, I think a lot of people are wanting to discuss. Let's see how many people we have watching us. Watching me. Wait, am I live? Oh, that would suck if I'm not actually live. Alright, cool. I am live. Alright, so yeah, shout out to everybody who's watching. What was I about to say, though? Too much. A little bit too much of the ganja. Alright, let me get my thoughts. We'll start here soon. Yeah, we're gonna be starting soon. Woo! We're live. Oh yeah, blood and cheese. That's what I was gonna do. Okay, cool. Blood and cheese. All right, blood and cheese. I don't know how I need to remind myself of that, but okay. So look, before I give my thoughts about it, I'm actually kind of doing that live. I don't really know what to think. I'm like running through it as we speak about it, right? But there's people watching, so I need to spit it out. Okay, so in canon, blood and cheese happens this way, right? Daemon Targaryen, first thing he does when the war breaks out is go to Harrenhal, right? He doesn't sort of wait around like a dog for Rhaenyra to return, because that doesn't happen in canon, right? So Rhaenyra's on Dragonstone. What happens at Storm's End happens. Daemon's at Harrenhal at this time. So when he receives word of Lucerys' death above Storm's End, he sends a note to Rhaenyra and he says, yo, a son for a son, we'll make this right? So then Rhaenyra is kind of like distraught. She's basically destroyed like she was in the beginning of this episode. She doesn't know what to do. She just is kind of like in the background, right? So Daemon hatches a plan via Mysaria, not the way that it went down on the TV show, but Daemon works with Mysaria to hire Blood, a former Gold Cloak. Blood in this episode was an active Gold Cloak. So anyway, Daemon works with Mysaria to hire Blood, who's a former Gold Cloak. The way that he got removed from the Gold Cloaks is because he was basically doing savagery and fornication against the will of a woman, right? So they removed him from the Gold Cloaks. They're like, nah, we can't have that. Get off the Gold Cloaks, right? Typically, in A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm talking about canon stuff, right? That's what happened. That's the origin of blood in canon. In A Song of Ice and Fire, when people do fornication against the will of a woman, right? You can't say that word because I'm going to be demonetized. I don't know if ads are currently even playing on this, but I'm trying to play it safe, right? When that happens, if there's a proper king or there's a proper lord, for instance, Samwell Tarly's father, Randall Tarly, right? Breanne shows up at the gates of Maidenpool and like they're like discussing whether they should fornicate with her against her will. With this woman that Breanne's traveling with, she just kind of she starts following them on the road to Maidenpool, right? So, Sir Hyle Hunt steps out and he's like, I know what, Randall Tarly does to people who fornicate with women against their will. He gelds them. He cuts their fucking balls off and he feeds it to them sometimes. He doesn't do all that, but he just gelds them, right? That means you remove the shaft and the berries, right? You take it off because then you can't fornicate with people against their will anymore, right? That's what happens. So it's kind of interesting that Blood was not sort of gilded for doing this. So anyway, getting way back on track. Daemon works with Mysaria from Harrenhal, right? Daemon's in Harrenhal. He works with Mysaria. He's in King's Landing. The Gold Cloaks are very much loyal to Daemon. So when Daemon walks up to Blood at the gate and he's like, "You looking for some gold?" And Blood's like, "Commander." I love that. That was canon. Kiss to the canon, right? Because Daemon is the Lord Commander of the Gold Cloaks. The famous line that Sir Luther Largent says is, "My cloak is gold no matter which way you turn it," when he turns on the greens. We haven't seen Sir Luther Largent on the TV show yet, but he's the Lord Commander of the Gold Cloaks, and he's actually removed as the Lord Commander of the Gold Cloaks. And this dude that is going to be played by Freddie Fox, we haven't seen him yet. His name's Gawain Hightower. It is Alysanne's brother. He becomes the Lord Commander of the Gold Cloaks, but Luther Largent is still his number 2. And when they take the city, spoilers, I guess? I mean, I don't know. You watch my channel, you probably know I talk leaks. I discuss the TV show. I discuss everything that happens. So, yeah, Luther Largent kills Gawain Hightower. And 2 characters we haven't even met yet. You know their fate. Well, you know a little bit of the back history. You know the fate of someone we haven't seen yet. That's how we roll here on Sir Hunt's Reviews. Nothing is off limits. Even your mom's cooch. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, cooter or coochie, but one of them. Your mom's coocher. It's not off limits. I'm all up in that thing. Oh, yeah, by the way, I've been working out, man. I've been... Let me stay focused. I'm just excited. I haven't done a live stream since March. All right, so yeah. Daemon, Harrenhal, Mysaria, Blood and Cheese, King's Landing. Daemon's not there. And in canon, they know what they're doing. And they do what they go in there to do, right? So Daemon's like, look, a son for a son. We're going to kill the king's heir. Right? Technically, Lucerys was not Rhaenyra's heir, but a son for a son. The king's got 3 children, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, the twins, and then Maelor. Maelor is the youngest. And he actually dies way worse of a way, believe it or not, than Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys got his head cut off on the TV show, gets his head cut off in the books. The way that it happens on the TV show, I almost want to ask why they did it that way. I mean, look, man, I'm not paid by HBO. HBO's not giving me no money, right? This is just Mark's opinion. It seems kind of like a slap in the face to people who have read the books because it was an unnecessary change, much like what happened in episode 9 with Rhaenys. It was an unnecessary change. You didn't need to necessarily change it, but I'm trying, right, to keep an open mind. I'm trying to rationalize the thoughts process of the writers. And I say writers because I want to make that clear. It's not just Ryan Condal. It says written and created by George R. Martin, Ryan Condal, and it says written by Ryan Condal. But it's actually a team of writers. It's Ryan Condal, this other person named Sarah Hess, and then like several other people. Ty Michaela, I think, used to be George R. Martin's assistant. It's a team of writers. So you kind of have to, when you're trying to rationalize their decisions, realize that you're not dealing with one person, you're dealing with like 6 people. So sometimes their decisions seem a little convoluted, but maybe it pays off in the end, because the thing that happened with Rhaenys, at least I think, will pay off, because it makes more sense to have Rhaenys kill a bunch of innocent people, and then when her dragon's head is marched through the streets, the people of King's Landing, you would think, would cheer for that, right? Because Rhaenys killed a bunch of them. And maybe that's what happens on the TV show. So maybe it's kind of like when Rhaenys die. Oh, crap. Another death? Rhaenys is going to die in episode 4. Sorry. Rook's Rest is happening. Hey, but look, let me go ahead and tell you something right now. I'm going to spoil the entire show for you. They all die. Every single one of them. And none of them, except one person, dies from old age. And that's because he's literally already in his late 60s. Corlys dies at 69, I think. But yeah, Corlys is the only one who dies of old age. The only one. He makes it through the whole dang show, and he dies of old age. He dies on the Serpentine steps of like a heart attack or something. But yeah, all right, so anyway. Okay, so Blood and Cheese. So they're hired in canon. Blood and Cheese are hired. Daemon, Mysaria, go kill King's heir. They go to kill Jaehaerys. They kill Jaehaerys. When they get there, it's a similar situation that happens with Helena on the TV show. Cheese is like, yo, which one's the boy, which one's the girl? Let's look and see. And then Blood, after Helena points at the one, Blood's like, nah, she's lying. And Cheese is like, yo, no, she isn't. She's telling the truth, right? We don't actually know. At least I don't know. I'm pretty sure they do end up doing it to Jaehaerys. But when you see the back of Jaehaerys' head, he's got a braid. He's got like 2 ropes around the back of his hair, right? Remember at the beginning of the episode, and he's at the King's Council. Aegon, Tom Glencarney is the best actor of this episode for sure. He killed it. Every scene he was in, he like drew. It reminded me of like the way that like Tyrion, the actor who plays Tyrion, Peter Dinklage, or Cersei. It reminded me of the way they kind of command a scene when like all the other actors, when they're on screen and then there's other actors around them. They kind of like they're outshined by how good of a performance the one actor's putting on. Usually in the main series, it would be Lena Headey or Peter Dinklage, right? Aside from his atrocious accent, that's how it would go. Like, they'd command the scene. That's kind of what Tom Glencarney did in almost every scene he was in this episode. What was it? We were talking about blending cheese, too much weed, making my short-term memory disappear. How many people we got watching us right now? 100 people. That's awesome. Hell yeah. That's dope. 121 people. Nice. And I missed this. I don't know how. Super chat from Breanne Johnson. What's up, my girl? Long time. She says, so happy. Hell yeah. Thank you for that. That's awesome. So happy to be back for the live streams. Miss them terribly. I do too. I don't want to like make this about me, but this is my channel. There was a long absence where there was no content from me, and I'll be honest with you, I'm still working on myself, right? That's why I got excited when I was about to start talking about working out. It is hard as a mother to raise 2 children. It's the hardest thing that anybody could ever do, and I confidently say that after having done some hard stuff, after doing the hardest thing I've ever done in my life physically, which was run 6 miles nonstop. I've done it 3 times now. Today's the 3rd time I've done it. Raising kids is harder than that. Raising kids is harder than running a marathon. Raising kids is harder than running a half a marathon. It destroyed me, and it still has destroyed me. I am a weak person, right? Today's Father's Day, but I'm just being honest. It is hard, dude. We don't got no nanny. We don't got no help. We just have ourselves, and it is hard. My children, I don't even know what to say, but yeah, I'm just letting you know. Thank you for that super chat, Breanne. Shout out for being a member on my Patreon for all this time in dealing with my absence of content, lack of content. Next live stream, there's going to be a phone number where you guys can call in if you want to and join in the conversation for my Patreon members. And also, I'm going to be doing audio-only podcasts returning to Patreon, too. What's good about Patreon during this time is all the stuff that I can't say on my channel for fear of demonetization. I have no fear of that on Patreon because no one's going to take my Patreon from me. They can't do that unless I show my wiener, which I might actually end up doing. I've gotten in pretty decent shape. I might start whipping my wiener out and reading a song of Ice and Fire. I know I teased that last year, but I'm serious this time because now I'm actually in decent enough shape, I believe, so to do that. Whip my wiener out and read Jon Snow. Whip my wiener out and read Daenerys, right? All right, anyway, yeah, getting back on track here. Blood and cheese. Okay, so the way that the TV show did it, the one thing I didn't like is that, well, 2 things, actually. The portrayal of Daemon, I guess it's kind of linked to it. I didn't like the fact that Daemon actually went to King's Landing. That doesn't make sense stake-wise, right? Like, that doesn't lend well for the stakes of the series in the sense that, like, why, like, it's kind of contradictory because Daemon says Rhaenyra shouldn't go off on her own, right, and do her own thing because she's out in the open, right? But then Daemon kind of does that when he goes to King's Landing. He's like in the heart of the city, right? And he's putting himself at an insane risk. Like Daemon is Prince Fleabottom, right? That's like a slum in King's Landing. So it does kind of make sense that he's able to move through the streets like that, but not once the war starts. The whole point of Daemon is like he's a rash individual, and when you hear about his adventures in his youth in Fire and Blood, you're like, okay, this dude's crazy. He's a wild card. We don't know what he's going to do. But then when the war happens, he shows his prowess. He tightens it up. He's a 49-year-old battle commander, and in Fire and Blood, it's specifically mentioned that Daemon has more battle experience than any of Rhaenyra's enemies and all of her allies combined because of his warring in the Stepstones, because of his dragon conquesting down in the Stepstones. He was the Prince of the Stepstones. Remember that? That was an episode in House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 4, right? The conquering of the Stepstones. Daemon was the prince down there, so Daemon knows what he's doing, right? So why would he keep saying, let's go take our dragons. We're going to go get our dragons. Let's go fly our dragon. We're going to take our dragon. Like, I didn't like how they're characterizing him, but I love what they're doing with Aegon. What they're doing with Aegon is amazing. They're humanizing him because, to be honest, I thought they were just going to poop all over the greens this season because of how he was portrayed in episode 9 last season. I'm like, yeah, there's something to it in the books when in the Fire and Blood when it's mentioned that like he actually refuses the crown because he's like, that's my older sister's crown. It's once he's convinced that his life is in danger and all of his brothers and sisters' lives are in danger, that's what makes him take the crown. And honestly, his reign is tested really early on. It's kind of hinted at the fact that he might have been a decent king in Fire and Blood had, the Dance of the Dragons not have happened, and he had just succeeded normally, and he had actually married Rhaenyra. He might have been a decent guy. That's what it seems like they're doing with him in season 2. So that's awesome. I look forward to that. I love that. I just don't like this sort of mischaracterization of Daemon in the sense that like it's kind of the opposite of what he is in Fire and Blood. It's mentioned that he's this guy who has all of this experience and knowledge, and he's a massive asset to Rhaenyra because of that, right? Like, for instance, I feel like I've said this 100 times now, but the first thing he does is when he actually takes Harrenhal, he kills nobody. No one dies, and that shows his prowess. It's mentioned specifically in Fire and Blood that Daemon learned in the Stepstones that men fear his dragon Caraxes. They run from the sight of wings. They're like, oh crap, we better go. There's this massive lizard-breathing monster coming. Or sorry, lizard-breathing. Well, it is a lizard and it is breathing. There's this massive fire-breathing lizard that flies coming towards us. So we better run, right? And because Daemon learned that in the Stepstones, he knows that it's possible, like Rhaenyra's the one who's kind of, in episode 10 at least, Rhaenyra's the one who's pushed as like this wise commander because Rhaenys says to Corlys, I'm talking about season 1, episode 10. Rhaenys says to Corlys, she's like, yo, because Corlys gets upset. Remember, he's out of it. He doesn't know what happens. Not only does he not know that King Viserys is dead, but he also doesn't know that his brother Vaemond had just had his head cut off, and he was like dealing with the treasons of his brother Vaemond. And he didn't know that happened. He's down in the Stepstones. He leaves as soon as Laenor and Laena dies. Corlys goes down in the Stepstones on the TV show, right? So he's gone kind of when the events of episode 8 happen. So in episode 10, he's being filled in by Rhaenys, as they call her. Rhaenys, rather. And she says something about Rhaenyra, and Corlys goes, she burns everything she touches. Like, basically saying, like, I hate Rhaenyra. Everything she does, she burns. Or everything she touches, she destroys. This is the line exactly. And then Rhaenys, I'm going to call her how I call her, which is Rhaenys, right? I can't say Rhaenys. I don't know. It just feels weird. Rhaenys chimes in, and she's like, no, actually, Rhaenyra's the only one holding the realm together. And then Rhaenys goes, all the men around her want her to plunge the realm into war, but Rhaenyra's the only one that's kind of holding back. So that sentiment, that idea that was Daemon's in the books is kind of placed on Rhaenyra in episode 10, and then it's gone in episode 1 of season 2 because she says, I want Aemon, right? That's not contradictory. That's believable. That's humans. That's how we are, right? Like 1 second I'll be laughing my butt off because my kids do the craziest, funniest thing, and then the next second they're screaming, so then I'm now screaming and crying and all this stuff. So I don't 100% understand how emotions can make you switch. Sometimes within seconds you'll feel one way one second, and then the next way another second, right? So I can 100% relate to that. Let's see. Oh wow, I forgot that trailer. The trailer for episode 2 is not actually a trailer for just episode 2. It's a trailer for the entire season. So that's gonna be fun to break down. Look for that coming out. I would say probably Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest. I gotta break down the episode first. Let's do this. Let's jump in the chat. Oh yeah, real quick. There's 3 things that were lore-wise that were addressed, or lore-wise that were sort of addressed and kind of talked about in the show, but they're like a sort of a misstep almost. Number 1 thing, right? It was cool. It was let me take that back. It was amazing to see Winterfell, right? Dope. Awesome. Loved it, right? It was even cooler that they explained the breakdown for the show's lore that 1 in every 10 Northmen are sent to join the Night's Watch. I can't remember the exact details, but something very similar to that is mentioned in A World of Ice and Fire, and then also in several POV chapters, like Jon's POV chapter, when they think back on the history of House Stark and the history of the North, right? It used to be an honor to send members of your family, second sons, third-born sons, like when you would have multiple children, only one of them is your heir, you have more than you need. So one of them would willingly go join the Night's Watch, because once they got to the Night's Watch, at that time, so this was before Aegon's conquest, not during the time of right now, not during the Dance of Dragons, but back, even further back. Remember, the Night's Watch has been around for thousands of years, right? So even before the Targaryens had even left Valyria, when Valyria was still in its height, and supposedly, the Night's Watch has been around longer than that. So the Wall has been around in Westeros for something like I don't know, a long time, right? They would take entire retinues of individuals with them, right? It was not like a death sentence, so to speak, where, like, remember in Game of Thrones show, the Night's Watch was filled with thieves, murderers, and fornicators against the wills. Like, they're fornicating against the wills of individuals, right? You know what I'm talking about. The R word, and I don't mean that. I don't mean retard. I don't mean... Oh, I just got demonetized. There we go. But yeah, I don't mean like they would... Crap, I need to quit making so many jokes. It was just an honorable thing, right? You would take like a bunch of people with you. You would make kind of like a party. You would almost have like a big to-do to go to the Night's Watch, because you could come and visit, and like I said, when they bring their servants and all these people with them, it was not such a hard life of like, we wake up, we defend the realm from wildlings. No, it's like it is an honorable thing. They easily defended the realm from wildlings. Even the giants and the wargs and all that stuff was never a threat, because the Night's Watch had so many members in it, and they were always stocked up on individuals in supplies. That's the big thing. When big, like, higher lords and ladies, right, from the greater houses of Westeros would send their family members to the Wall, they would come with their retinue, right? So their servants and like other household members and stuff, but they would also bring supplies. And most of the great houses of the North and a lot of the houses of the South would donate supplies to give to the Night's Watch. They still kind of do that now with Yoren. When Yoren's with Arya in Feast for Crows. Yoren's alive in A Feast for Crows. No, he's not. So this is a Clash of Kings. Arya's traveling, obviously, right after the events of Game of Thrones. Arya's traveling through the Riverlands with Yoren, and Yoren has several wagons filled with supplies that were given to him. He bought some of them, but also some of them were donated to him, and he's taking them to the Night's Watch. But it was very few. It's like they have nothing. Jon Snow is dead. Man, George, where's Winds of Winter, dude? Can we get it? Can you give us Winds of Winter, man? Can we get it? George, can we get it? Are you there, George? Are you watching me? Yeah, right. But yeah, man, give us Winds of Winter, dude. Just let us know how it ends. The TV show is how the TV show ends, but we want to know how Winds of Winter ends, right? Type in the chat a snowflake emoji if you want Winds of Winter. Type in the chat. Let me make the chat bigger because I can't see what y'all is saying. Oh, maybe not that big. That's what she said. No, really, that is what she said. She's got shallow. She's got a shallow one. Oh! Snowflake emoji in the chat. Yes. Give us Winds of Winter. Winter is coming. The long nights. Give us Winds of Winter. Snow emojis. Snow emojis. Snow emojis. Snow emoji. George, if you're watching, you heard it. The people have spoken. Give us Winds of Winter. But yeah, it's cool. So getting to the lore thing that I wanted to say, that was a cool shout out that the show, they added a little bit to it. But it was dope that they did that. That was a respect to the lore, right? When they're like, yo, the Night's Watch is a big deal, right? Or at least it used to be, right? And that keeps in theme with Cregan, because the whole reason why Cregan is so late to show up in the first place is because he's prepping for winter. And there's a line where Alicent's in the Red Keep, and she's like, the brisk is fully gone from, like, the summer nights or whatever. Or, like, basically, like, autumn's here, like, winter's coming. So that's dope, because right after this, a winter, like a 5-year-long winter hits Westeros. And it's because the dragons are dead. The dragons are gone. They all die. That's not true. There's a couple left, but their power is greatly diminished. And it's called a Song of Ice and Fire because there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a balance in between the two. I was actually explaining this to my girlfriend's mom yesterday. I say girlfriend, but she's my fiance. We're getting married. Like, so the balance, like, she asked me, and I'll propose this question to you guys, right? Like, let me put your response in the chat box, please, and I'll go back and read them. But she told me, she's like, is the prophecy of a Song of Ice and Fire, is that a thing in the books? And at first I was like, no, there's no, like, in my head, I'm like, no, there's no glowing knife. The cat's paw dagger, could very well be, because it's Valyrian steel, could very well be a House Targaryen dagger, but most likely it's not, because they kind of make a point on it in the Game of Thrones TV show, with when Sam steals Heartsbane, and obviously when he tells everyone, like, yo, Jon discovers, for the TV show, Jon's the one who discovers that the Valyrian steel sword can kill a White Walker, but that's not 100% confirmed yet, because that hadn't happened. Jon doesn't go to Hardhome in the books, and we don't actually know if a Valyrian steel sword will work against... Wait, no, that's not true, because he fights... No, he doesn't get Longclaw until after he kills the White that tries to kill Lord Commander Mormont. So yeah, we don't actually know if we Dragon Steel for sure will kill a White Walker, because Dragon Glass kills a White Walker, but we just don't know yet because we haven't had anybody with the Valyrian Steel sword fight a White Walker. What we have had is the opening scene, or the opening chapter, the prologue for a Game of Thrones. We have this dude who is from Royce, Waymar Royce. He's from House Royce of the Vale, right? He fights a White Walker. That's the only appearance of a White Walker up close, aside from when Sam deals with one. But it's mentioned that they're like otherworldly alien-type creatures, and Waymar doesn't have a Valyrian steel sword. He's got a regular castle-forged steel sword. It's got a cool jeweled hilt that is later brought to the wall, back to the wall, when Jon Snow lets all the wildlings in, all the wildlings have to pay, like they have to give up their something valuable to pay passage into the safety of the Night's Watch. And when they do that, some random wildling drops the jeweled, at least we think it is, it's the jeweled sword that Waymar Royce uses to fight the White Walker in the opening POV prologue chapter of Game of Thrones. So, getting back on track here, we don't know if the Valyrian steel swords work on White Walkers. We assume they do. But she asked me if the prophecy was a part of the books. No, so there's one that's called like the Prince Who's Promised, and his is the Song of Ice and Fire. It's like so in Daenerys's chapter in the Clash of Kings when she's in the House of the Undying, Daenerys's famous House of the Undying chapter. She's given basically liquid psilocybin, and we all know how that goes. Like, she super trips out, and she sees all these things. One of the things she sees is Rhaegar in a room with, I was about to say Lyanna, but it's not actually Lyanna. It's actually his wife, the Dornish woman, who for some reason, Elia Martell slipped my name. I just said it. I just said it. That's the word you can't say. But he says, you rapped her. You rapped, like rap. Like YouTube, people, YouTube algorithm, I said rapped. You rapped her. You killed her. You murdered her children. You killed my father, prepared to die. I can't think of his name. Inigo Montoya. I am Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepared to die. Inigo Montoya. If you ever wonder why I don't smile, or if I do and I'm looking at myself and I quickly close my mouth, I'm missing teeth over here. It's from not brushing my teeth. Like, it's pretty bad. I'm missing this tooth right here, and then the one right below it, so it looks terrible. And I don't know. I was about to say something really embarrassing there, but I don't need to do that. I don't need to embarrass myself. I'm not going to embarrass myself. But yeah, so getting way back on track here. Inigo Montoya. What made me talk about Inigo Montoya? I was asking something. Okay, so we're talking about the wall, and I always get sidetracked talking about the main Song of Ice and Fire books. Okay, so... Oh, crap, we got... Crap. Wow. Thank you, Pebbles, for that super chat. Thank you, the North Must Remember. Thank you, Emilio Betancourt. First one that I missed, North Must Remember, says, predictable. The writers were going to make Aegon likable and Daemon more of a villain, trying to balance the scales from season 1. Prepare for the severe negative portrayal of Daemon all season. I wouldn't say severe. I think they gotta be, like you said, they gotta be even. They gotta be fair, right? So, like, we see Daemon, when I say we, I mean like fans of his, right? We see him in a certain light. And as much as I try to pretend that canon is law, the way Fire and Blood's written is like, we see Daemon a certain way because we read the description of Daemon in Fire and Blood, and then we kind of filled in partly the gaps in our own head, but we're using other Targaryens that we've seen to fill in those gaps. So the one Targaryen we've seen that's male on screen that grew up knowing that he's a Targaryen, Viserys. Right? We've seen, not Viserys, I'm talking about Game of Thrones, some of Daenerys' brother Viserys, right? That Viserys, that's the one other depiction before House of the Dragon that we saw of a male Targaryen. So when you're reading Daemon's description, we're like I was just explaining earlier, the wild card, you hear he's like challenging Otto in his youth. Like when Sir Otto wanted to remove him from the council, he does that. The king puts him in charge of the Gold Cloaks. Daemon now has 2,000 men under his control and waxes more powerful than ever before, right? So you hear stuff and you're like, oh, Daemon is a savage. He does not care. He's going to do what he needs to do. And when he's given a crappy hand of cards, so to speak, he makes the best of it, right? Like, he literally does what is the most admirable thing to do, right? At least from my point of view anyway. Like he makes the best of his situation, and regardless whether you agree with the decisions he makes or the way he goes about things, I think most people like winners, right? And like winners do things that Daemon does. So the writers are deciding to look at some of Daemon's other aspects when forming his course of actions in the way he's depicted on screen for this season. I don't agree with it. Like I said, I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to give the writers a chance to sort of let it air out. Like maybe the fact that they're breaking canon by having Daemon do certain things and say certain things, maybe they plan on making it pay off later by having it work its way back around, like having Daemon's entire character arc work its way back around to maybe once he actually does take Harrenhal this season, which we know he's going to do, probably next episode, we'll see that, oh, no, he still has those aspects. But then you'll combine it from what we know in the book, and then you compare it to what we have in the TV show, and we're like, okay, yeah, the TV show kind of made this a more well-rounded individual, right? It's kind of interesting that this TV show, House of the Dragon, has to do that with the characters because there's no POV of any of them, right? We don't know the internal monologue. We don't know the thoughts of any of these characters that we're watching on screen. So the writers have to come up with that, right? And like sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they don't. We don't really know because there's only been 11 episodes of this show, right? And there's only going to be 7 more episodes this season, and then we're going to have to wait 2 years before we get season 3. Let's whisper that because I don't want you guys to all unsubscribe from me. No, I'm just kidding. I kept y'all entertained, the people that watch my stuff, for the most part of the long night. It's just the last 4 months I kind of fell off. But that's, like I said, it's my own mental thing, and it's like, I'm trying. All right, so yeah, I don't know. Let's just see how it goes. I agree that they definitely are making Daemon more of not necessarily a villain, but a less likable character because he's kind of like just waiting around for Rhaenyra when the Daemon that we know kind of takes charge of the situation. And you got to realize in episode 10, he choked Rhaenyra like with little to no fear of the consequences, right? But then Rhaenyra leaves and he's sort of afraid to ride out on Caraxes to Harrenhal. He's like, I should go to make Lord Tully bend the knee. I should go do that. You know what I mean? But he doesn't. He's still hesitant. But you choked her, but you're hesitant to go and do something that you know is going to... But you're hesitant, but you choked her. Like, that doesn't really make sense. But it's, like I said, it's too early to tell. Maybe there's a reason why they're doing this. Maybe the payoff will be worth it. They are definitely giving aspects... Oh, yeah, I meant to finish my whole thing, which is like, isn't it funny that the writers for this show have less to work with, and sometimes they make amazing decisions, right? But then with the biggest thing with Game of Thrones is that they had so much to work with those characters, and they whittled them down to what they did in the end. Like a lot of people talk about Tyrion's arc from once he goes to Essos and then comes back, he's like a goofball. He's like not the Tyrion that we knew, this manipulating, conniving individual who's playing the Game of Thrones, who's one of the best players of the Game of Thrones. He kind of becomes this like, like this shell of his former self, right? I just thought that was kind of ironic. But thank you for that super chat, Northwest, remember. Then we got another one from Emiliano Betancourt. Thank you for that. They said, sending this because I've been listening to you for years, and I remember the long night. LOL. I'm excited, bro. I love the episode until the last 10 minutes. George somehow managed to be better than... than money. I guess you mean... so the way that George wrote Fire and Blood, than the way HBO did it. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. Everything George does in relation to A Song of Ice and Fire, his version of it anyway, is almost always going to be better. always. He's the creator. He can come up with the best version of most things, right? I say that, and I say almost, because there are certain things that the TV show does better. For instance, the fight between Oberyn and the Mountain. When you read that in a Storm of Swords, when you read that fight scene, and it's just like, oh, then he circled left, and then he banked right, and then he turned this way, but then Oberyn moved this way, and he's tiring. It's like, it's tedious to read a fight scene. I enjoy watching the Mountain versus the Viper a million times over on YouTube. That clip is amazing. It's an amazing fight scene. Pedro Pascal, like, I became a fan of his after that because of how cool he made that character and how awesome that fight scene was. So there are certain things that the TV show can and will do better than George, but that's very rarely the case. Usually George is always going to have the better version of stuff because he's the creator. And we got another super chat from Pebbles. She says, happy Father to, by the way, thank you for being a member, executive producer of my channel, a member of my patron. Happy Father's Day, Sir Hunts. Love the beginning of the episode. Hate they skipped the veil, but underwhelmed with blood and cheese. The veil. When Jacaerys goes to the Vale, that's right, he does. Okay, so, oh yeah, wow, they skipped White Harbor too. He goes to White Harbor first. I don't know. It doesn't matter where he goes first, but yeah, they skipped over. Jacaerys is supposed to go to White Harbor and the Vale and then Winterfell. That does suck. But we do know that Emma Aaron is going to be played by Mother, Amanda Collin, I think is her name. Amanda something. And she was an awesome actor in Raised by Wolves, another HBO show. Got canceled after season 2, to be completely honest. I knew that was going to happen. Season 2 was crazy. Season 1 ended crazy, but the show was very original, and I definitely enjoyed watching it. It's just kind of like you could tell there was no source material for it, because it kind of went crazy at the end. Literally, it didn't make any sense to have a flying snake thing going through the air. It's like, what? And then it turns and they trap it in the cave and the thing, and she's petting it and what it got nuts, dude. Come on, and she birthed that. Come on, that show was crazy. There was no source material to that at all. Raised by Wolves was a great show, but let's not pretend like we didn't know why it get canceled. That shit was going nowhere. That show was crazy, dude, and not always in a good way. We got a super chat from Jay. Just thumbs up. Shout out. Thank you for that. Let's see in the chat. Nolan Fonseca says, I thought Cregan, Aegon, and Cole I'm assuming you're referring to the best actors, Cregan and Aegon, for Brian Johnson. He's a rapist, John Haymaker, yep. Cole did a grand job. Yeah, that was some crazy box munching there. I wasn't expecting that. There's a scene that it looks like Alysanne was getting pushed up against the wall, or that style. That it seems like that might be coming later this season, because that was in that trailer that played at the end. I don't know if that was the sex scene that made everybody. I know you can't even say that word, but I can curse, I think. I don't know. It's YouTube's demonetization stuff is wild. But yeah, I don't know if that was the scene that everybody was crazy about or the other one. I hate to do this, but I told you. I mean, I don't know, all the people watching this, maybe y'all knew it too, but you could tell in episode 9 when she's holding his hand, she embraces him and she's like, look, do this for me, for everything you feel for me. You must go and get my son, right? Because she's like, go find Aegon, bring him to me. And then to counter that, we have Sir Otto telling Eric to go and find Aegon. I mean, I knew they were. It wasn't that shocking to me. Completely honest, it really wasn't that shocking to me. Especially when you combine it with the fact that Cole is he has this line. So remember in episode 9 of season 1 when they're looking for Aegon, they go to the Street of Silk, which is basically the red light district in Amsterdam, right? When they get there, they go and talk to this woman at a brothel. And they're like, yo, have you seen the king? Right? Kristen Cole is talking with Aemon in between like them going to looking for Aegon. And basically, he's explaining to Cole. It's actually right before they get to the brothel. But Aemon tells Cole, he's like explaining what Aegon took him to go do when he was way younger and he had to lose his V card. He took him to that brothel. And he's like, it's time to get your cock wet, right? And then right after that, Cole has a line. And I've seen this scene like 50 times now, but he says it as though he's so used to having to like, he says every woman is an image of the mother and should be revered, right? Like, not exactly, but he's basically saying, like, the mother is one of the deities in the Faith of the Seven, and the Greens are all about the Faith of the Seven. Even though Targaryens themselves are above religion, right? Like, Rhaenyra literally tells her two sons, Jacaerys and her other son, whose name literally just slipped my head for 2 seconds, Lucerys, right? She tells them, we've got to swear. She's like, swear on this thing right here. It's the Faith of the Seven book, right? Like, us Targaryens are considered gods. And then she's like, the Iron Throne makes us closer to being gods. But if we're going to control these people or like manage them, we're going to have to play by their rules. And she's like, swear by the Faith of the Seven, right? So she's explaining to them that I'm not necessarily religious, but I want you to know that you have to sort of play into the small folks' faith, right? If you want them to follow you, you have to show them that you're worth it, right? And one of the ways you show them that you're worth it is by doing that. Crap. What was all this in response to? Where was I getting at? I really gotta stop smoking so much weed, dude. This is embarrassing. This is crazy. This should not have happened. Like, I can go on for like 5 minutes and then completely forget what I was going on about because I get sidetracked so many times. This is insane. Sorry for you all watching me. This is nuts. I really am sorry. Oh, Cole. Okay, yes, I remember now. Cole says that line of like, every woman is an image of the mother and should be revered. The way he says that made me think like, oh, he's used to like lying to like pretend that he's using religion as a guise, right? Which is something that a lot of Christian people will do. They'll be the worst type of people in the world, but be like, it's okay because God forgives all my sins. I'm a Christian. Like, that's like kind of what Cole... That's kind of what Cole and Alysanne are doing, right? Because after they hook up, Alysanne goes, we can never do this again. And Cole's like, yeah, I know. Can you help me with my cloak, though? Like, that's so funny. Like, that's I don't know. I immediately was like, dude, they're doing something. I feel like there probably would have been a scene for it in season 1, but there just wasn't enough time. Like, remember, there was a scene that was cut that was with Baela and Rhaenys, and they were talking. And that scene was cut entirely. And basically, Baela was saying, yo, I want fire and blood. I want to avenge, the Greens stealing Rhaenyra's crown. And then also there was a scene with Corlys got hurt. Remember that scene initially of him falling into the water and then being pulled out by Alan Velaryon, excuse me. Alan Velaryon was cut as well. So, yeah. Shout out to Super Chats. We got another one from the North from us, remember. Speaking of which, please go subscribe to his channel. He's a member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. He says, interesting, Jace was not aware of Aegon's song. Yeah, Rhaenyra hadn't had the chance to tell him yet. But that would have been an interesting conversation. There is no way that he does not go back to the North. There's no way that they just completely cut Sarah Snow like that. no way that they didn't show the two of them hunting and hawking. And they kind of did because they showed him at the wall. And he met him at Winterfell, so they went on a journey. Maybe there'll be a flashback, or maybe there'll be, like, what is Jace going to do from now until the Battle of the Gullet? Like, he helps with the dragon seeds, but he's not one of the ones claiming a dragon. He rides Vermax. What is Jace going to do except for go and hang out with Cregan? And then eventually, Sarah Snow is brought up. That's so crazy. I mean, two things. One, I was wrong, right? I said that the scene that they were filming, or the set that they had built in Leavesden, that was this tiny little strip with this wood pylon that was built up that looked like it was maybe 10 feet high and had this little bit of snow around it. I was like, dude, there's no way that that's the wall. We've seen the set for the wall before. It's massive, right? I was like, there's no way that that scene is the wall. But then I also said it could be, and they've got a bunch of CGI stuff that would make it look way more awesome like it does on the Game of Thrones TV show, right? So I was wrong there because I strongly was like, yo, definitely that is not the wall, but it is the wall. And also the other thing I was wrong about was nothing, because that was it and I'm always right. No, I'm just kidding. It was the fact that there was, well, I mean, that kind of did, we don't know if that's going to happen yet, so I'll wait to say that, right? So I'm about to jump into the chat, but there was one more thing. Okay, so when, it was one more thing related to the Stark. So after, because you know, the entire opening scene where Jacaerys is in the north at the wall with Cregan. Cregan's telling him how 1 in every 10 members of northern houses, 1 of every 10 members, or 1 in every 10 individuals was sent to the wall to go and join the Night's Watch, and it's like a privilege, right? Even his own family. And I think that kid that they showed picking up the Black Rock was, I mean, that would break too much canon. There was no reason to do it. So one of the reasons why Jacaerys supposedly gets along with Cregan so well is Jacaerys reminds Cregan of Cregan's younger brother who he lost like a few years before he becomes the ruler of Winterfell. So that's one thing I don't know if they had to do with on the TV show, if they're going to deal with it. But Cregan has to wrestle the North from his uncle Bernard, right? And he's clearly already done it on the episode that we saw because he's the ruler of Winterfell. He's got ice on him, right? So in canon, Cregan is too young to rule the North when his father dies, right? Alucard, or the guy that we saw bend the knee to Viserys, right? Once he dies, his brother takes over the North as a placeholder for Cregan because Cregan is too young to rule. So once Cregan becomes of age, his uncle Bernard doesn't want to give up the power, so Cregan has to like basically wrestle the power from him, and he like ends up taking the power from his uncle and becomes the ruler of Winterfell. But one of the things that's mentioned of why him and Jace get along so well is because supposedly Jace reminds him of his younger brother, and that stood out to me because we know, right, show watchers and book readers, we know that Jacaerys' father is a member of House Strong. You know, the strongest man in the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Harwin Breakbones. He's dead. He died in fire in Harrenhal in episode 7, right? But still, it's important that you realize that he's from House Strong because House Strong is one of the few houses below the neck in canon in the Song of Ice and Fire that worships the First Men. So the reason why Harwin looks the way he does, like similar to Jon Snow, like some of the other First Men, is because he's got First Men blood. They are First Men. They're Northerners down south, right? So Jace should remind, theoretically, a fellow Northerner of another Northerner because he's half Northern himself, right? So that always stood out to me. So I don't know, and I'm kind of sad that they skipped over that. Also, there was rumors that they was gay. There was several rumors that were sent to me online. It's not really mentioned in the books, but they were going wild. People were saying, yo, they got a gay love scene, Jacaerys and Cregan. Why else would they say in the books that they had a brotherly bond? Why did they go hunting and fishing? Why was the Pact of Ice and Fire made? Like, there's a lot of whys, right? But, like, yeah. But anyway, when Jacaerys is being told the lore drop by Cregan messes up. The writers messed up. I don't know if they did it on purpose. But Alysanne, specifically, it's just Alysanne because Jacaerys is down south dealing with the Triarchy. He's trying to get... Jacaerys is basically... Okay, so let me set it up for you. Jacaerys and Alysanne are the greatest rulers Westeros has ever had. In their youth, they flew around Westeros. Actually, it was started by their older brother and sister, Aegon and Rhaena, Aegon the Uncrowned. So this is right after Aegon the Conqueror. This is his kids, right? So it used to be a tradition. Actually, it was started by Aegon. Aegon flew around the entire Seven Kingdoms and would stop at the smallest keeps and holdfasts to see everyone, to get to hear what it's like to live in the Seven Kingdoms that he just formed into one kingdom, right? And is now ruling over, right? So he would take, they're called royal progresses, all over the countryside and stop everywhere and listen to anyone. He encouraged anyone to come and talk to him, right? Face to face. He would be on Balerion the Black Dread. Sometimes his wives would be with him, sometimes not. But the main thing is that he flew around and got to know the people he was ruling, right? So it's kind of a thing that Targaryens do is they fly around other dragons and they go and meet all the people and they go and do all these things. So, getting back on track here, Jaehaerys and Alysanne continue that tradition. They went everywhere. There was this one specific time where they wanted to go to the north. But Jaehaerys got held up in King's Landing because it was this really rare opportunity to basically discuss democracy between these three sister cities that were former colonies of Valyria, but they were having this big beef, and Jaehaerys was given this really rare opportunity to sit down with all of the rulers and come up with a peace, and that would benefit him in King's Landing because trade prospers, riches. Jaehaerys is all about settling stuff. He's called the conciliator for a reason, right? So he gets held up in King's Landing, and Alysanne says, I've got a dragon. I can go fly myself. I'll go do that, right? So she goes and sees the Seven Kingdoms herself. She goes to the north, right? She's waiting at Winterfell for Jaehaerys to show up, but Jaehaerys takes a long time to show up. It's kind of really interesting what happens. She's got a cold welcome at first by the ruler of Winterfell, but then eventually she grows... like he likes her because she's got an awesome personality and she kind of is like witty back with him because he's kind of cold but also funny. He's got like some interesting dialogue that he has with her. Long story short, Jaehaerys' conciliatory mission that he's doing down in King's Landing takes too long. So Alysanne gets bored, right? The old queen, she's like, I'm done at Winterfell. I'm kind of bored. So what she does is she decides to fly to the Wall. This is the part that was brought up on House of the Dragon. Cregan says to Jaehaerys, Alysanne and Jaehaerys flew north of the Wall, or tried to fly north of the Wall, and their dragons refused to take them because of the threat that lies north of the Wall, death. It's kind of a direct bastardization or a slap in the face of canon because two things. One, Jaehaerys did not fly his dragon north of the Wall. He didn't try to, and he didn't come up with the idea that his dragon stopped him from going. That was solely Alysanne. Alysanne, that was just her. And she definitely, this is the other thing. So the first thing is they slapped canon in the face. And it's kind of silly because there was no point in doing it, right? It was just Alysanne. Alysanne was the only one who did it. They just wanted to say Jaehaerys because Jaehaerys was the first king that we saw on the TV show. Remember, he was the king in the first episode. They had that big council and he chose Viserys. So they had to throw his name in there, right? Or maybe Cregan just doesn't know his history that well. But anyway, it's just Alysanne. And the second point is that the first point is that it's Alysanne, not Alysanne and Jaehaerys. And the second point is that she didn't tell the Starks that her dragon refused to take her north. She didn't tell nobody. It's mentioned in Fire and Blood that she didn't tell anybody because she thought it would freak them out. She didn't want them to think that the dragon wasn't in her control, and she didn't want to freak them out because they're northerners, they're suspicious, and they didn't want her to think that she wasn't in control of her dragon, and she didn't want to sort of lose the facade that the Targaryens are these godly creatures, these godly humans that can ride dragons and they control them. It scared her to the point where she wanted to keep that information a secret. Okay? She didn't tell the Starks, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they end up finding out eventually. Maybe they find out because they see that she won't fly north of the wall. But it's like, I appreciate the fact that the lore was dropped, though, because the average show watcher has now been enlightened that Targaryens have been in the north prior to Daenerys. So that's cool. That's a really cool thing. We got to see 2 dragon seeds. One of them is kind of like not really a dragon seed, but he's technically one. He gets burned. I think he could have probably got a dragon if he found the right one, right? So we got to see Alan Velaryon. He was the dude who pulled Corlys out of the water. That's father on Raised by Wolves. It's Abu Bakr Salim. Amazing actor. He is going to end up becoming the new Corlys by the end of the series. It'd be cool if he was like somehow a part of the Corlys spinoff. I know he's not. Like, not him playing Alan Velaryon, he won't be. I mean, maybe a younger version of him, but it won't be that actor, right? So it's like, what's the point if it's not the actor? You know what I mean? But he's a dragon seed. His brother, Adam Velaryon, ends up flying sea smoke. I like Adam more than Alan. That's because he rides sea smoke. But Alan has a longer, more interesting journey because he lives longer, so he's able to do more things. And we also saw Hugh Hammer. Hugh Hammer, the leader of the Blacksmiths Guild in King's Landing, came up and talked to Aegon. My leaks, I was sent a leak that said that Hugh Hammer is one of the random patrons at a bar called the Cock-Inn Tavern that Aegon frequents. And Hugh Hammer is sort of spotted by Aegon when they're doing the Dragon Seed plot. And Hugh Hammer is then sent over to the Blacks to claim a dragon, but then ultimately he betrays them, like in canon, and supposedly for the TV show, it was supposed to be a plot that was worked on the whole time by, maybe. It could still happen. I think more likely they're going to go the route that the reason why Hugh Hammer betrays the Blacks is because, like, what happens in the books is they're not really rewarded properly for how successful and how much they helped in the Battle of the Gullet. Basically, after the Battle of the Gullet, Hugh Hammer and Ulf White are still on the sides of the Blacks, right? They're part of the Dragon Seeds, and Nettles, obviously. They're still part of the Dragon Seeds. Daemon tells Rhaenyra that she should... there's 2 or 3 lords, Rosby and Stokeworth, that she has the ones... the leaders of their house executed because they betrayed her, right? But they all have daughters. And Daemon tells Rhaenyra they should marry Hugh Hammer and Ulf White to the daughters of House Rosby and House Stokeworth because it would be a proper reward to make them lords, right? And they would have like seats of power and still stay loyal to the Blacks, but still feel like they're well rewarded. Rhaenyra refuses to do so, and that's part of the reasons why Hugh Hammer and Ulf White leave the Blacks is because they don't feel like they're properly rewarded for how much they risk their lives. But they're also Dragon Knights, right? So you got to realize they're part Targaryen. It's confirmed through their blood. Like Hugh Hammer, for the TV show, is most likely going to be a bastard of Jaehaerys, and that's how he's able to claim Vermithor. You got to realize Vermithor is a very particular dragon. For the TV show, it's confirmed because remember how nervous Daemon was when he walks up to the dragon and he's freaking singing in Valyrian, and the dragon's still like, "Argh!" Like does the massive, let me do it the right way. Come on, stay lit. Stay lit. Okay, it won't stay lit, but you get the point. Pretend I just waved my lighter all around, because that's what Vermithor does. It's like it's not going to eat Daemon, but Daemon's still afraid that it might eat him, right? And you still don't know. Like, we know that that's not what happens in canon, but the dragon is very temperamental. The fact that it chooses and allows Hugh Hammer to ride him, and Hugh Hammer's age, and the fact that Queen Alysanne and King Jaehaerys had several fallen outs, and it's definitely confirmed that by the end, after Queen Alysanne died, that definitely, get this, King Jaehaerys was hooking up with Alicent. That's King Viserys' wife. In the books, Alicent was way more promiscuous than what we saw her in Season 1, but I don't know if she's as promiscuous as Season 2 Alicent getting that box munched
up on the table. Oh, I might have to revisit that scene later with my pants off and my hand on the kick.
Yeah, that was awesome. Right on the edge of the table, too. That was cool. Shout out to Olivia Cook. I got an Olivia downstairs. She's not a famous actress, but I got one downstairs. That will get us demonetized. That's where we get demonetized. So yeah, that was the one thing. We got to, like I said, we got to see the dragon seeds. Oh, and here's a little thing, kind of interesting. Alysanne's mother is a complete mystery. It is a big blank in the lore. Her name is House Florent. I can't remember. It was something very similar to Alice, but it's not a name from a famous character in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a name I think they made up for the TV show. Or if it's a name from A Song of Ice and Fire, it's a super secondary character that's just casually mentioned, but doesn't actually have any speaking lines. But House Florent is of note. You remember Selyse Florent? Remember Stannis' wife? Or sorry, you remember Selyse Baratheon? She's got a mustache. Well, she kind of did have a mustache on the TV show. But in the books, it's much more of a thing. They talk about her mustache all the time. Selyse is of House Florent. They are a fox is their sigil. They're loyal. The Florents are loyal to... Aren't they loyal to the Tyrells? Because that's why it was interesting that Selyse's cousins chose, or that's why Selyse's cousins chose Renly, who had, no, that's Highgarden. Storm's End. Are they loyal to Storm's End? I don't know. It's besides the point, but that was pretty cool. So because like if you look up who Sir Otto's wife is, when you read Fire and Blood, it's not mentioned. It's completely just not mentioned. But they made her name sound derivative of Alicent, so that's cool. All right, so let's jump straight in the chat. 2 super chats I missed. Or 3 actually. Shout out to Uncover the News. They said, what if the Maesters change to Blood and Cheese story from choosing which twins to which son because it sounds better? Most history is a lie. Let me reread that. What if the Maesters changes, basically, what if the Maesters change Blood and Cheese? Oh, from which twins to which sons? I don't know. I've never thought about that. I mean, I have thought about Maesters influencing history, and that's just because George he literally, in Theon's POV, and in Dance with Dragons, Theon meets Barbary Dustin, and Barbary Dustin literally calls the Maesters gray rats, and she's like, the Maesters pretend that they don't have any last names, so because they want to basically cover up where they came from, so they want to hide any loyalties they may have, right? So every single Maester in Westeros comes from a house. They may have been a second son. They may have been... like in Samwell's case, he's a firstborn son, but he's not the man that his father wants him to be. So once his father has another son, Samwell asks if he can go join the Maesters Guild. Like, most of the Maesters come from a house, and because of that, the fact that they come from a house of Westeros, they're like a lordling or a lady, like a higher up. They have some sort of loyalty to whatever their house was, whoever their bannermans were. Whoever, maybe, let's say they're a bastard of 2 separate houses, maybe they have loyalties to one house over another. So even though they're supposed to be loyal to the realm and loyal to whoever they're serving, whoever is in power, it doesn't matter if they like the person or not, they definitely have biases because they're human. And they existed before becoming Maesters as a part of a house. And they had plots and motivations and betrayals, and that influences their decisions when they become Maesters and helps get them certain benefits that they wouldn't have normally had they had not been from a great house. So Barbary Dustin literally calls them gray rats because she's like, this gray rat, they wear gray robes, right? And they scurry around like little rats. She's like, they whisper in a lord's ear, and some of those lords can't read. And then she also mentions that, like, when you get sick, the maesters are the ones who heal you or keep you sick if they wanted to, or could potentially kill you, and no one would know any different because you're not a learned individual of the Citadel, right? So Barbary Dustin tells us in Dance Dragons that the maesters are not to be trusted. She literally says they're not to be trusted, and the way that she says it makes perfect sense, right? Right? It just makes sense, right? It makes sense. Like, oh yeah, maesters have motivations. Almost every character in A Song of Ice and Fire, POV or not, has ulterior motives. There's very few pure individuals, and even those ones that are pure, like you would say Jon Snow or Daenerys, they become corrupted by their surroundings and individuals whispering in their ear, sometimes maesters, right? So, maesters totally influence and change the story, but it sounds like when you end that, Uncover the News, when you end it with most history is a lie, it sounds like you're, I'm not trying to call you out or nothing, but it sounds like that same sentiment of people who comment on my videos saying, like, you can't say the books are canon, and you can't say you know what happens because the history is a lie. Like, that doesn't work, because when you read Fire and Blood and then you read the main series, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, history is real. These books were based off of history, but this world that these books are in, that the Song of Ice and Fire is set in, has its own rules, and people play within those rules. So you can, I'm sorry, but when you've read A Song of Ice and Fire 12 times, you know what really happened when Martin presents multiple choices. It'd be like, George is my professor for a class, and he does testing a certain way, and it's your job as a student to know the way that teacher does the testing in order to pass the class. George does that in his books. As a reader of his books, I can confirm that everything that's mentioned in Fire and Blood, out of one of those choices, that's what actually happened. That's why I always say the dance of the dragons is a perfect version for the writers to dance within and still get it right, because there's multiple different versions of everything, and they can still get it right. It doesn't mean that everything that Martin says in that book is a lie. That's just stupid. And I'm not saying that you're saying this, Uncover the News. I'm just saying this because I wanted to address that. I see a lot of people comment on my videos saying, canon is, Fire and Blood is a lie. You don't know what actually happened. No, that's not true. That's a scapegoat that I feel like might be bots from HBO saying, if the show's writing is bad, here's why. Fire and Blood, you don't know what happened in Fire and Blood, so you don't know that this is bad writing. No, like, I just feel like that's a scapegoat for that. So that can't be the case. You can choose one of the events that Martin lists and then tweak it and change it entirely so that we don't even recognize it, but still play within the bounds of the books. You just have to read Fire and Blood and read A Song of Ice and Fire more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. You have to study that, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get what Martin is doing. You can't just be like, I read this one part, let's do this scene this way because I think it'd be cool. No, that's silly, you know? I don't know. Shout out to Rafael Luna. It's another patron of mine. He says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. He says, how about the scene with Hugh? You think he will go to the Calling of the Dragon Seeds disgruntled, or as a plot with Aegon to betray Rey beforehand? I actually mentioned that. I'm behind on these. Sorry. I did, but I'm not really sure. I don't know. I think it's possible that that the plot, like the leak, if you're referring to that, like him being sent over there by Aegon, that leak that I was saying, that's possible that still happens, but I think it's more so going to be like what makes him leave Rhaenyra's side is that he saw that Aegon is at least trying to be a good king, and then the Battle of the Gullet could happen, and then he sees he's going to be in that same position with Rhaenyra, except for he's going to be a dragon rider, not a blacksmith, and he's going to be in front of Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra's going to be on the Iron Throne, and he's going to say open-handedly, what is our reward for nearly dying, sacrificing our life for you, this queen, right? What is our reward? And she's going to say, well, literally nothing, right? Because that's what she does in the books, and I'm pretty sure that's what she's going to probably do on the TV show. And then that'll be the motivation for him to go over to Aegon's side, because he's going to think Aegon's open-handed. Aegon offered to pay us beforehand for the iron that we needed to build these scorpions that are used to protect his city. The price of iron is driven up, right? So Aegon offered that. He's going to remember that, and that's what's going to make him go over to his side. Aegon is open-handed, whereas Rhaenyra is close-fisted, and she's like, you have to do it. Like she tells Boros in the letter, she's like, I expect you to do this because of the oath that your father made. That's where she screwed up. She should have sent her son Lucerys with something to reward this fool. Like, that's what the Greens did. They knew that he's going to be, and she knows how she is, because she literally says Boros will need to be reminded of his oaths. So she's like, go there on dragon. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it'll be like it may not be a plot with Aegon. We've got another one. Melanie Vine, these are all my patrons. Shout out Melanie, she's another patron of mine, executive producer of this show. It is a show, right? She said, I found, oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've already been streaming for longer than most of my streams. Oh wait, no, it's not true. Wait, how long have we been streaming? It's been an hour. Yeah, an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so yeah, I can stream all night. I meant to say that. My wife, my fiancé is putting down the kids tonight, so I can stream as long as we want. Let's keep going. Melanie Vaughn says, I found the scene between Jace and his mom emotional. Very well acted. Started with Your Grace, ended with mom, hug, and cheers. Yes, definitely. I think Emma Darcy is an incredible actor. I think they're going to shine like a diamond. And I was going to say mofo diamond there, because I know you heard this before, Melanie, but there's a reason why Emma Darcy was picked to play Rhaenyra. Like, obviously, there's a reason why, obviously, Millie Alcock was picked to play the younger version of Rhaenyra, but there's a reason why Emma Darcy was picked to play the main version of the character. And that's because they're extremely talented. Whatever the casting director saw when they were watching their audition tapes, whatever the writers saw when they were watching that character being portrayed by Emma during the initial, what is it, like a table read or whatever, right? You can still be fired from a table read in Hollywood. I know it happened in London, but HBO is Hollywood. It's an American TV show that just happens to hire all British actors. We like to give British people money. British people need money. They're poor over there. I'm just kidding. But no, it very much is an American production, and I've watched podcasts with famous people, and they talk about how you can still be fired from a table read. Like, you can literally be at the table read, be reading for your part, and then you'll get an email afterwards, and they're like, yo, look, this isn't going to work out, right? So you got to be really good at your table read. So whatever they saw, right, in Emma when they were doing their audition and the table read and then all the other stuff, they knew that person, that being, was extremely talented, and we're getting to see that. And that was one of those scenes. I agree with you. I think it was more when what got me more was when Emma Darcy did the scene with the fishermen, and they walked up and found the netting with the dragon wing and then the cloak, and then when they pulled the cloak out, they broke down. That's when I was like, oh, I was like, I don't know, this is kind of silly, but I was like, just imagine, what if I don't even want to say that, right? But just what if, and I'm like, Or like one of the parents of the people from like, America has school shootings that happen. Like that's the reason why my kids are not going to school. I'm homeschooling my children literally because there's a fear that they could be shot from going to the place to learn, right? It's a massive fear, right? So just imagine like what if something like that happened and you're like, you got to go up there and get their stuff out of the locker. That's the same thing. That scene is what made me jerk tears. And then I started jerking off because I had to. Oh, that's the demonetization right there. That's the deep. Anastasia Ray says, does Jace have a kid? No, they don't. I just want to show y'all something. I hit 200% of my move goal today. My move goal is 800 calories, and I have burned 1,600 calories. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but 900 of those calories was in a 1 hour and 9-minute run outside in the heat for 6 miles. All right, sorry, I'm really proud of myself. Anastasia Ray says, does Jace have a kid? No, Jaceres does not have a kid. Jaceres is betrothed to Bela, and in canon, Bela wants to marry Jace right before the Battle of the Gullet happens, which is when Jace dies, but Jace denies her, and he says, let's wait until after the Battle of the Gullet, like when his mom's sitting on the Iron Throne, before he marries her. And he obviously dies in that process because in canon, the Battle of the Gullet happens first, and okay, I just heard some screaming that sounded like it was real and not a fake tantrum screaming. Hang on, give me 1 second. Okay. All right, I'm back. So, I forgot what I was just talking about. That's pathetic, Mark. Jesus. I forgot. I don't know. But yes, the shout out. Thank you for that super chat. Oh wait, does Jace have a? Oh yeah, so that was the last one. Does Jace have a kid? No, Jace doesn't. So, the interesting part is that Jace denies marrying her, and then Mushroom says, in canon, Jace doesn't want to marry her until after his mom's sitting the Iron Throne. And in canon, Mushroom thinks that's because he's already married to Sarah Snow, the bastard sister of Cregan. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. I don't think Sarah Snow exists because she would have already had to have been, sort of brought up for a second. Let me do this right here. Yeah, I'm going ninja mode, stealth mode. You guys don't even know what I'm doing. Y'all have no idea what I'm doing right now. Woo! I'm a fire-breathing dragon. The only reason why I'm doing this is for YouTube. What is may or may not be lit on fire in my presence and being is 100% legal through this thing called the Farm Bill. THCA, baby. Look it up, baby. Get you some Dr. Ganja's distillate. You will thank me later. So yeah. It's crazy that this damn chat window keeps following me around wherever my mouth goes. It's almost like I don't want to show you guys what I'm actually doing. By the way, let's take the time. I'm going to take the time to give myself a shout out. By the way, shout out to J Fox Art. Please go follow the man on Instagram. He did this amazing painting right here. He's done a bunch of other amazing artworks. That was sent to me from the UK almost 2 years ago now. Well, it was October of... Wait, no. It's Christmas 2022. Yeah, so almost 2 years ago. Yeah, shout out Jay Fox, man. He's amazing. I like all of his work. But also, T-shirt. That's what I wanted to bring up. This T-shirt right here is something that I designed. It is kind of loosely related to House of Dragon, but it's more so the main Song of Ice and Fire series. So, this is a dragon flying over bricks and bricks and blood. Built Astapor and bricks and blood her people. Basically, Daenerys frees slaves and overcomes the city itself, that being Meereen, when she flies away on Drogon. So this is kind of the symbolization of that, right? But then it's also House of the Dragon, House of Fire and Blood, because there's a house that's literally on fire, and then there's a blood drop symbol. The many bricks of Meereen, the bricks of Astapor, the many colored bricks. There's a lot of brick symbolism in Daenerys. It's like hard, like uniformed surface that she smashes through. It's like the slave trade is this hard. It built everything over there. It built the city itself that she conquers. She overcomes that with her dragons through fire and blood, through the burning and destruction of her house. There's a lot in this shirt. There's a lot of thought that I put into it that I'm like butchering right here because it's been a year and a half since I came up with the idea for it. But yeah, so you can go get one of those if you look at my story on Instagram. There's a link. Also, there's a link right here on YouTube. If you look right below the video, my shop to my Teespring shop is linked there. But yeah, go check that out. If you buy one, that money goes in my pocket. They're listed for $25. I think Teespring charges me $19 per shirt, so I have like a $6 profit on each shirt. So I try to make them as cheap as possible. I was putting in my headphones because I was about to start listening to Fire and Blood. I thought I was just talking to myself. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. I swear I was about to start putting on, not Fire and Blood, but A Song of Ice. I was putting on Game of Thrones. I just restarted Game of Thrones literally yesterday for the 13th time. But yeah, I'm just to show you guys I was not lying. Like, are you kidding you, dude? Y'all hear that? Can y'all hear that? I like how I'm listening on my microphone as if sound is going to start playing through the microphone. That's funny. But yeah, y'all know. Edard. Y'all know me. Boy. Your boy. I'm a crazy person. Literally, I keep re-listening to it because I'm like, I got to be ready for when Winter comes out. I got to be ready. It's got to be fresh in my head. But now, it's literally, I'm like, it's got to be fresh in my head because I want to be able to talk about it with you guys. Let's see. Chat. Let's bring up the chat real quick. Let's see. John Haymaker says Jace isn't married yet. Sir Hunts. Yes, I know. Anastasia Ray says he does look like Jon Snow. Yes, he does. Northwestern member says, wait, these can be monetized. The live stream? Yes, live stream can be monetized. DJ KLY242 says, I like Aben Smirk. Me too. Ewan Mitchell is an amazing actor. That dude's career is gonna blow up after this. Not that it already hasn't. I mean, he was on freaking what was that? Vikings, right? Wasn't he on Vikings? Yeah, I got confused. I was about to say he was on The Last Kingdom, but no, the kid that played young Uhtred in the first episode of The Last Kingdom is Cregan Stark. That's Cregan Stark. I bet you didn't know that. Young Uhtred is Cregan. Young Uhtred is Cregan. That's pretty cool. He's playing in North. I will say this. His accent was a little thick. Was light to rice, thick like a dark lager. It was nice and thick. He sounded just like Ned Stark. And he sounded like Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams were like best friends. So whenever a new season of Game of Thrones was coming out, they would always do these fun promotional videos on social media. And it was actually funny because you get to see like Arya and Sansa doing funny things outside of the TV show and not in character. Or sometimes they'd be in costume, they'd be on set, and they'd do silly things. One of the things they did was they would make fun of Ned Stark, Jon Snow, the northern accent, and they would talk about how hammed up it was for this. Like, there's this one, I think they're in a car, and it's like for Jimmy Kimmel, and they're like making fun of the northern accent or whatever. But yeah, Cregan's accent, it was a little thick. John Hamburger says Cregan looks like Ned. He has Ned's hair. Yeah, he does. But it kind of threw me off to have Harry Collette have his real hair, right? Like, that's his real hair. And then so clearly a wig next to it. Doesn't look bad if everybody's wearing a wig, but it looks crazy when one person has their real hair and then the other person so clearly is wearing a wig. That was kind of a crazy aesthetic choice for the wig. Melanie Vine says, good night, guys. It's 4:30 a.m. here, and the sun's coming up. Got to be up in 2 hours. Well, good night. Thank you for joining us. I know you're in the UK, and I know it is crazy late over there. Shout out. Thank you for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you, obviously, in the next live stream, but also in the comment section, and then on Patreon when I drop the audio podcast review for episode 1. I might be a little bit behind. That might actually come out after episode 2 drops. I'm going to try. Rafael Luna says, Helena walked out of one traumatic moment and walked into another one. It really is terrible luck. But you like how she just ignored it? Like, she kind of was just like, She was so much in shock that she just kind of glazed past it. But also, the fact that she can see so much and she can talk coherently, it makes me wonder why they're not listening to her more. She said there's a beast beneath the boards, and there was a fucking beast that burst beneath the boards. Why are they not giving her more credence? She said, but what about the rats? And then Aegon's like, the queen is awesome, isn't she? Oh, man. There was another moment. Oh, why did I not write that down? God, there was a moment with Aegon where it was like, it was the, when the people are coming up and they're like asking him for stuff. The guy's like, a tenth of me flock is gone. And Aegon's like, well, yes, I will give you the rest of your sheep. And then Sir Otto walks up. He's like, look, dude, if you keep saying that, they're all going to go up here and ask for your sheep. And then he goes, you know what? Changed my mind. I can't actually do that because I got to feed my dragons. That was gold. I don't know why. I love that. I love that. And then Sir Otto tries to do it again. But then King Aegon corrects him. And he's like, no. The will of the people. I need that. And then Otto's like, fuck it. I'm just walking away. He's like, all right. Oh, man, that whole thing. That whole thing was, yeah. John Haymaker says, Happy Father's Day. Thank you, Sir Hunts. I just said thank you to myself. Thank you, John Haymaker. How many seasons? Liam says, how many seasons do you think we will have? Well, at least 3. Hopefully no more than 4. I want the show to keep going, but I don't want them to add too many things where they like stretch it to 5 seasons. The show is over. The show will mostly be over once Daemon and Aemon die. Like, Rhaenyra and Aegon are still alive, but their deaths are very quickly. Actually, you know what? Aegon reigns for half a year after the death of Rhaenyra. But they would just be stretching it. There's not enough source material to make it more than 4 seasons. And I'm saying that with the expectation that next season will be back to 10 episodes. If they keep 3 and 4, 8 episodes, then yeah, you make a 5th season, 5 episode season. And that would be like big time jumps. And maybe you'd get to do something like show the fate of some of the secondary characters who've moved into main tier characters in the later season. Or the latter part of season 3 going into season 4. I don't want them to just give people plots just because they think fans like them. That's silly. I don't want that. I want the show to be successful And the way that they be successful is realizing that you don't have to put all your eggs in the Dance with Dragons basket. And they've kind of realized that because they're giving us Dunk and Egg next year. So I want them to realize that there's more areas to explore that could be even more potentially exciting than the timeline when there's just dragons. So like Maegor, it's like there's dragons around then, but there's only like the main ones that you see, Balerion the Black Dread. You wouldn't even really see Vhagar that much. Vhagar's huge, right? It's pretty big at that time. But you wouldn't even see Vhagar that much because Visenya doesn't necessarily ride her dragon into war. You wouldn't even see Balerion that much because, for the most part, Maegor uses his dragon strategically, but there's no massive battle going on that's like several dragon riders. No, it's just him versus Aegon the Uncrowned. So it's one very small dragon, Quicksilver, versus one very large dragon, Balerion. And that's the biggest thing that'll happen in all of the Black Brides that involve dragons, right? It's known as the battle below the God's Eye. So the battle above the God's Eye. So the battle that's above the gods is two gods fighting, and rightfully so. Both of them are right. Aemon's right and Daemon's right. So it's called the battle above the God's Eye. But the battle below the God's Eye, it's like the gods are watching and judging because Maegor was so wrong in the sense that, like, he shouldn't have did what he did. So Maegor died horrifically, right? He was called the battle beneath the God's Eye. And that was when Maegor on Balerion killed Aegon on Quicksilver. And it was over in like 2 seconds because it was just like it was Lucerys, Arax, Vhagar, Aemon situation, right? That's it. So that's the biggest dragon battle that happens on that show. But you gotta realize the story of the son of Aegon the Conqueror, who may be a bastard, so it stays in that same line of like the theme of like there's no DNA testing, so you don't know what's going on, right? Like it could be a legitimate person that's doing all this chaos, and then that's bastards have a terrible name. So like natural born kids that are born out of wedlock are just given this terrible reputation, even though they didn't even do anything wrong. Like Jon Snow, he's never done anything wrong his whole life, but Catelyn is like shunning the crap out of him, right? And like honestly, that's Ned's fault. Like if Ned hadn't have had Jon Snow living at House, I was about to say at House Stark instead of Winterfell. If Ned had did what most lords do, which is send their bastard off somewhere to go live, and then, maybe make sure they're taken care of, then Jon would have been treated the way he was. But bastards in Westeros in general are just, they have terrible reputations to go with them. So, yeah. Shellin, shout out Shellin. I believe you remember I'm a patron. You should be a moderator here. I'm going to add you as a moderator after this. Shellin, I recognize that profile picture. Shellin says, nice shirt design. Thank you. Brian Johnson says, I'm hoping Morning gets hatched in the promo. They show some eggs. Yes, they do. So they show 2 eggs. I remember that distinctly because I saw the greenery in the background. I'm like, oh, that's at the Vale. I don't know whose other egg that is, but maybe she just brings 2 of them. One of them is her egg Morning, the one whose skull is the size of a cat. I think Joffrey mentions that in the TV show. And then Robert, I think, says that in A Game of Thrones. I'm not sure, though. Robert Baratheon. Not in his POV, but it's just mentioned that he's like, the Targaryens, by the end, their dragons were so unnatural, their skulls were the size of a cat or some shit. Oh! Just said a curse word. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, YouTube. There's people doing a lot worse than talking about a fictional show and are still monetized. But, yeah. They do show the egg, so maybe they just bring an extra egg. Maybe she just... so Joffrey goes with her. Maybe he won't have Tyraxes on the TV show. Maybe he'll have an egg. And that would kind of... I mean, it won't necessarily make more sense, but it would kind of just be easier to digest as why he decides to jump on Cyrax the way he does, and then Cyrax shakes him off over Flea Bottom, and he falls to his death. Why does he want to go to the dragon pit if he doesn't have a dragon? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know whose egg that is. Maybe she just brings 2 with her because she isn't sure which one's gonna hatch, or maybe she brings 2 with her because one of them isn't for her and it's for someone else. Maybe she brings one as a gift. I don't know. I really don't have any idea. But they're definitely you know what? No, there's no way one of them's Maelor. It's way too early to do the death of Maelor. That's got to be season 3. Is Maelor even a character on the show? I don't know, because it seemed like the kid just had 2. She, for sure, Helena was only with one set of children. I'm sorry, Helena was only with her children. Like, there's no way that she had another child that wasn't with her. You know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe Maelor's been cut from the show. I don't know. That's a good one. I'll have to rewatch that a couple times in freeze frame. The demonetization ship sailed long ago. Well, maybe not. Maybe not, because I haven't said any curse words. Uncover the news. Thank you for that super chat. They said, I would like to see a series around Queen Alysanne. I would too, but it's going to be Jaehaerys one. So it would be like a direct prequel to Fire and Blood, or a direct prequel to House of the Dragon. So I don't think they would ever do that, because maybe not now, like not in the next 5 years or something, but maybe sometime down the line. I'll be right back. I gotta go give my kids a kissy night night. So yeah. Helena likely, the Northwest Remember says Helena likely didn't react, because she already knew clairvoyance and all. Maybe, I think it was more so shock. I think someone else said that too. It's shock, probably. Missy W says, I thought I read somewhere George said 10 seasons in reference to how many seasons the show could be. I don't think so. I think George was probably joking. And he said that for the original Game of Thrones show. There's no way. I think he's the one who said 4. That's where everybody gets the 4 from. 4 would be perfect for this. Marcus Gwynn says, what do you think of episode 1? Just got here, sorry. I guess you know what? I guess I haven't actually, I've talked about the episode a bunch, but I haven't actually, given my thoughts on the entirety of the episode as a whole. And the main reason being is because you're going to have to wait for my breakdown. No, I'm just kidding. Shout out. Thank you for joining us, man. Marcus, to keep it simple, we'll do 3 things. On a scale from 1 to 10, my favorite part and what they could work on. So on a scale from 1 to 10, out of the previous 10 episodes that we've seen from House of the Dragon, my favorite being episode 8, second favorite being episode 4 of season 1, third favorite being episode 10. And even though I've just seen the first episode of the new season, that should tell you my thoughts about this episode if it's not ranked in my top 5. But mind you, there's only been 10 episodes to compare it to. On a scale from 1 to 10, I would give it like a 7.5 and 8, right? The only reason why I score it so low is because there was like I mean, this is me. It's my opinion. This is just what I think, right? They didn't get characters that I like right. They didn't get certain aspects of them right. The portrayal in certain scenes, they didn't understand. It seems like they didn't understand what Martin was trying to do. It seems like they had an interpretation of that character and how they would react to that scene, and it was entirely wrong from the point that Martin was trying to get across in his words. When you read theories, you can debate a theory, right? Because it is up for debate. You provide evidence for why you think that theory is correct, and it's not correct because it is a theory. It is an idea that will either be proven right, which will make it a fact, or it's an idea that will be proven wrong, which will make it false, right? When George writes a book and he says this character is this way, that is a fact. He's telling you this character is this way, and then he gives you examples of them acting that way, providing the writers that may adapt his work with evidence to further that point across of this is the character that George was trying to write. This is what he wanted to portray. So there was some questionable moments, mainly with Daemon. Daemon is not going to wait around for Rhaenyra to come back like he's some whipping dog, especially the show version of Daemon that just choked her out in episode 10. He just choked her. He's not going to wait for her to come back. Why would he do that? He doesn't respect her at all. He looks at her as though she's inferior to him. So why would he wait for her to come back before he took action? Also, why would he try to convince Rhaenys to go with him? Like, yes, he needs her dragon Meleys, right? Or Meleys, they said Meleys on the show, but like, would he really try to be like, all right, come on, we're leaving? And then she goes, no, and he's like, but we're leaving. But I said we're leaving. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. And she's like, no, you're not the king. It's like, first of all, I couldn't help but be like, that kind of is like a slant. That just kind of seems like it's slander to like, it kind of seems like it was like a girl power moment that she's like saying you're not the king, even though she's absolutely wrong. He is. He's the king consort. He 100% has more power than her, and if he wanted to, could take her head. She is a woman with a more powerful dragon than his, yes, but the two of them right next to each other, he would destroy her in a 1v1 fight. It doesn't make sense that men in Game of Thrones would act like whipped dogs when confronted by a strong female. They would act like a strong male, and then the female would then get tested, and she would act like a strong female back. It's not a whipped dog for either of them. That's not how conversations go. The best part of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire is the dialogue, the wit and witticisms that two characters, male or female, will have between each other. They will cut each other's throats with words, but it's equal. It's not just like, oh, you whipped me, I'm gonna walk away, that's that. No, Daemon would have hit her back with, I am the king consort, and also, I'm a prince of House Targaryen. You're half Baratheon. Go sit down somewhere. Rhaenys, the queen who was skipped over. Like, he would have hit her back with a slander or something. Like, Daemon wouldn't just take that and be like, okay, I guess I'll go get the Fisher guy to take me over to King's Landing. Like, that's not Targaryen, dude. That's not even Game of Thrones. Men don't act like that in Game of Thrones. They abuse women. They're buttholes. They are misogynistic douchebags. They don't act like little pansies. They don't do that. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that they're making characters act like punks when they don't need to. And I know I'm sounding like alt-right YouTubers, but that's just true. Like, I know this world more than most. I know I'm sounding so cocky, and there's only 82 people watching me, and the show just came out, and I know I sound crazy to even say this, but I know this fucking world better than most people that talk about this world online, or most people that leave comments online, because I've made it my personality. that's just what it is. Like, I've studied this world inside and out. Hopefully me talking about it proves that when I can just recall things. I forget what I'm talking about 12 seconds from now, but I can just recall Song of Ice and Fire off the top of my head. I can talk about anything about it because I just love it so much, right? But I would say a 7.5 out of 10 because I don't like the way that... I believe it's Sarah Hess. Sarah Hess is the writer who was so controversial last season because when she was giving interviews, she would say the dumbest takes, the dumbest things ever. It kind of seemed like she didn't really like George R. R. Martin's work, and it kind of seems like she thinks he's a chauvinist or something with the way she comments. It seems like she thinks all... I don't want to say that, but it seems like she didn't enjoy Game of Thrones. Like, she didn't like reading Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. And to be completely honest, I don't think she's actually read A Song of Ice and Fire, because if she did, you wouldn't make some of the writing choices you did. Like, I mean, just simple things like having Rhaenys bust up the floor. Like, Rhaenys is this bastion of a character, of someone who is... There's very few examples of people who are right in everything they do, but Rhaenys was one of those characters where almost every time they were presented with an instance, they almost always made the right decision that could be argued like it's wrong in some aspects, but it's the most right. Out of all of the decisions, she makes the most right decisions. The main one being Rook's Rest. She accepts the fact that she's going to die and doesn't care. She's like, I'm here for this. Let's do it, right? They made her kill innocent people for no reason, and then she faced no repercussions for it. She just casually walks around talking down to other people, like Corlys, her husband, and it's like, dude, didn't you just kill all those innocent people? How about you chill the heck out and gain a conscience, right? They're like, it's like, 7.5 out of 10. Okay. Osa Fresh says, I give it 3 seasons tops. And then they also said, I agree with you. Don't take 2 years to make a season if it's not even close to accurate. That's not what I'm saying at all. You're literally putting words in my mouth. All I said about it taking 2 years is don't make it take 2 years, because that's ridiculous. It doesn't need to take 2 years to make. And I'm not saying that it's like so ridiculous that it's not accurate. DJ K-Wall, I was talking to someone else there. The mailman says, this is the reason The Witcher got canceled, writers not knowing the source material. Did The Witcher get canceled? Didn't they just replace the main actor? I don't think it's very good, but I don't think it got canceled. You can't pretend stuff that you didn't... we can't pretend it got canceled just because Henry Cavill left. That's not right. I will tell you this, I didn't finish the 3rd season, though, of The Witcher. I don't know what they were doing. I'm going back to seeing if there's any questions that I missed. That was something that I haven't talked about. Northwest, remember, this is way back, but he says this is kind of related to what we're talking about. The fandom likes Daemon too much, and the writers know it. So basically, like, that's why they have to make us not like him so much. Maybe. I think it's more, and I know this seems kind of weird because I was just kind of bashing the writing choices a little bit, but I think it's more they want to make the characters realistic, right? So they want to show you that no one's going to make the right decisions all the time, or no one's going to fall into the perfect sort of slot of how you want them to act all the time. Like, you're human. You're going to feel a different way some days than you did the day before. So you're going to do different things. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do awesome things. You're going to do terrible things, right? So I think that's what they're trying to do with Daemon. The problem is they've kind of, at this point, strayed too far from, at least, it's only one episode, so I'm saying it like it's permanent. Like, they can't easily write parts of his arc to make us look at him differently as a whole once season 2 is done, right? But it seems like they've pushed Daemon into the too much of the Viserys from Game of Thrones, Daenerys' brother, Targaryen lane. Because there's several Targaryens that fall under that dynamic, and Daemon sort of danced that line of being crazy, like the line that Targaryen they were talking about, is the Mad King, Viserys, Aerion Brightflame, famous Targaryen youths and kings sometimes that are just terrible people because they are not necessarily mad, like they're crazy, but they just are maybe not loved enough as a child, and then when they grow up, they see that inflicting pain upon other people makes them feel good, and it kind of fills the gap of them not getting love as a child, right? So that's what happened with Viserys. Viserys, Daenerys' brother, he grew up when the Targaryens still had power, so he was like, 6, 7, right? And he, like, his father's the Mad King, but like their Targaryens are still in power, so like he has all these servants. He remembers what it's like to have everything, but then he also remembers what it's like to have everything taken from him. So he has the entitlement of a Targaryen and someone of the blood. That's like a staple that they have that attitude. They expect everything because they think they're gods. Like Rhaenyra says in episode 10, we're gods. Dragons make us gods. The Iron Throne makes us a god or closer to it, right? Because it comes with all that power. And because of that, Viserys just feels like he's owed everything, and he's known as the Beggar King. Like, he asks, can I stay at your manse to Illyrio? He's like, can we eat your food? Can we live here? And like, he's always running from place to place because Robert Baratheon's always sending sellswords and assassins to try and kill him and Daenerys. So he develops this personality of like super entitled D-bag, sometimes can be loving, but for the most time is afraid to show any true emotion because he doesn't want to get hurt. So he's just constantly mean to everybody, pushing people away, constantly like, I'm not going to let anybody get close to me. I'm going to insult everyone and everything. And like Daenerys, he feels, remember the entitlement thing, Daenerys, he feels he's entitled to her because that's his sister, and that's what Targaryens were doing for generations before he was born, and that's what he was going to do with Daenerys. But then he has to sell her for this Dothraki horde to go and try to take back what's already his, the entitlement. Again, he thinks it's his. He thinks Daenerys is his. He thinks the army should just be given to him. He thinks it's his, right? That's a personality trope that gets recycled through Targaryens a lot when George is writing, right? And because of that, it's very easy to pull from that to try to shape Daemon and Aemond and Aegon and even Lucerys. Because remember, Lucerys was kind of a bully. He's the one who makes fun of Aemond for not having a dragon. He laughs at him when they puts the pig in front of his face. Lucerys is very much a bully, right? Until it's reversed and the bully could lead to his death, right? So you feel pity for him. But he's very much a bully for the first instances and interactions that we have of him in the TV show. He has that Targaryen entitlement attitude that Viserys is the origin of, right? So the only Targaryen we've ever seen on screen is Viserys from Game of Thrones, and then that's the main one. That's the main trope that's repeated. So when the writers are crafting these characters that they have to completely come up with from like basically nothing, with the little bit that we're given in Fire and Blood, that's the trope they keep going back to. So that's what they keep doing with Daemon. They keep making him this weak, ineffectual beggar king Targaryen when he's actually the opposite of that. I don't think they understand that. It's like, because that trope of a weak, ineffectual leader is repeated so much, it's actually common that Targaryens are like that. So when George has ones that aren't like that, Daemon, the rogue prince, George's favorite character, it's important that you get his character right. It's not just like Northwest Remember was saying, it's not just that like he's everybody's favorite and they wanted to make them not everybody's favorite. No, it's that he's everybody's favorite for a reason, and they need to get it right because of that. The reason why everybody likes him is the reason why they need to make everybody like him on the TV show. You don't have to be a good guy for everybody to like you. Tony Soprano murdered people. He was a murderer, and people loved him, and he's like the best villain of all time, but he's like the best character of all time because he was a murderer. So you can't say that. You got to be good, and you got to be a good person for people to like you as a character. Those writers just need to know what they're doing. And when I started out this podcast, I mentioned that the writer says it's written by Ryan Condal. It's a team of writers. If it was just written by one person, you probably wouldn't have a lot of the convolutedness that you get from even the own characters' interactions on screen. Like, it doesn't make sense for Alysanne to not pretend like they've been preparing Aegon this whole life, but then that's exactly what she's been doing. And then, like, she doesn't expect that, but you know that that's what they're doing. You're going to tell me you didn't see them preparing your son to rule, but you were there, part of the council? Like, what? That's contradictory. They just need, like, I'm going to be honest, they need someone like me who knows the lore like the shape of his own better than the shape of my own, right? You need someone like me to check you. Because if you would pass those scenes by me and you had been like, hey, what do you think about this? I'd be like, well, no, that's a direct contradiction. Here's why. Because at this point, I feel like George, if they do send him something, George is probably like, $450 million for what? Yeah, do it. Make it so that there is an old woman in the street and she says, I'll tell you your secrets. You know what I mean? Like, he literally will just do, I don't know. I don't know. But they definitely should, if I had to, like, give advice, which nobody's watching me. No one watches me. You know what I mean? I would say cut down on the amount of people who are involved in the writing process and haven't actually read A Song of Ice and Fire. And when I say read A Song of Ice and Fire, I don't mean just Fire and Blood one time. If you're only going to read Fire and Blood, read it 30 times. You owe that to the fans that are the reason why you have a job, because if everybody stopped watching, no one would have a job, right? You owe it to the fans to make sure you know the lore before you write about it. Like, you owe it to the fans to make sure you will not do a disservice to the lore before you write about it. Like, who cares if you don't think certain scenes won't be interpreted on screen as well because it's a book and they're different mediums and you don't think the audience can handle that, or you want to make it more hardcore? Just know that, like, general rule of thumb, if you're not sure what to do with a character, if you're not sure where to go with an arc, read the source material. Read it again. You read it again? Okay, now read it again. Go to sleep listening to it. Wake up, listen to it. Go for a run, listen to it. Feed your kids, listen to it. Go to work, listen to it. Work on your car, listen to it. Make videos, listen to it. Sitting on the crapper, read theories about it while you're listening to it. Make videos on it for 7 years. 8 years. And then you'll be like, oh, then you'll get it. I don't know. I sound like a cocky. I sound like a cocky. Oh, we got a super chat. Shout out. Marcus Wynn says, it's hard for me simply knowing that all of this was for nothing based on how Game of Thrones as a whole ended. Well, I mean, thank you for the super chat. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but that sentiment doesn't really work, because Game of Thrones is not how A Song of Ice and Fire ended. Game of Thrones is how Game of Thrones ended. So A Song of Ice and Fire is not necessarily going to end that. Well, it's 100% not going to end that exact way, but you know, it's not over yet. George hadn't put out Winds of Winter and then A Dream of Spring. DJ KOY said, did Aemon brag about killing Luke? How did they know before Dragonstone? No, they didn't. No, he didn't. I don't know. I mean, I assume he's on his dragon, so he flew from Storm's End to King's Landing before the Raven got to Dragonstone. So they had already knew. So, like, remember, episode 9 is what happens from the moment the Greens find out about Viserys' death to the moment they have Aegon's coronation to the moment Rhaenys busts up the floor and flies off. Then episode 10 is from the moment when the Blacks find out about the Greens' death, which in the books, it's about a week and a half in between that, when the Blacks find out and when... I'm thinking of Viserys' death in Rhaenyra. So what was the question? Did Aemon brag about killing Luke before? I mean, I don't know. Okay, so my theory still applies there. The Raven that went from Storm's End to Dragonstone is nowhere near as fast as Aemon on Vhagar when he's already headed to King's Landing. So he got to King's Landing probably at the same moment Rhaenyra found out or right before that. I don't really understand the question, I guess. Rachel H says, looking at the beginning of video and laughing my ass off when you keep getting off topic. I can't. You're hilarious. It's not really off topic, though, because it's on topic. The topic being A Song of Ice and Fire. It's hard to talk about this show or anything related to A Song of Ice and Fire without bringing up examples explaining why I'm talking about this the way I'm talking about it. So, like, an onion has layers. Everything in A Song of Ice and Fire has layers to it. It's never just surface level. This is why this is this way. It's going to almost always have more to it than whatever we're seeing on screen. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But also, you know, I'm excited. I haven't live streamed since March, and I've had 75 milligrams of green tea caffeine right before this, and I probably have ADHD, so I'm definitely off topic. But most people enjoy it, I think. The IDM ad says the dragon fights are the only thing left. They hopefully can't mess that up. See, here's the thing. They haven't really messed anything up. That's the wrong way of looking at it, right? People love to be negative online, and that was one of the things that I hated the most about watching certain YouTubers' videos when Game of Thrones was still on for Season 7 and Season 6, when I actually still watched other YouTubers' content because I was like actually still fans, and it wasn't weird because like I do the same thing. Why am I watching someone who does the same thing I do? Like, that's silly. I would just go watch somebody else who doesn't do the same thing I do. So, one, I won't be influenced by them. And for two, I won't, like, be jealous of their success, right? Like, I unfollowed almost every single YouTuber that I follow on Twitter and on Instagram because I don't want to put myself in the headspace of, like, oh, I'm comparing myself to them. I'm not doing as well. And I know I'm not going to do as well as those other YouTubers. So, I don't want to make myself upset and jealous and compare myself to them. So I just unfollowed all of them, right? So it's... I mean, let me think about this for a second. It's really easy to bandwagon they're screwing it up. Oh, this is going to be so bad, because it's really easy to do that. And, like, there's YouTubers like AnaaaRodarte and, like, anybody associated with him that only talk about things they hate. They never talk about things they love. So it's really easy to talk about the negatives of something and sound like you're bandwagon. And the difference is my negativities and my problems with the show come from a place of being the biggest fan in the world, right? It's just there's certain things that I really, really didn't like with, and it's mostly related to Daemon, because everything with Aegon I loved. Everything they changed and did differently with him I loved. But it's what they did to Daemon. It's like, it doesn't really make sense because it's contradictory to even their own writing choices for the show. They kind of contradicted themselves, and like when they would have Daemon do something like sing to Vermithor, prep Vermithor for a rider. He knows that they're going to need these other dragons, but then he's going to do something rash, like ask Rhaenys to fly with him to go and take King's Landing. That doesn't make sense. No, the first thing he does is want to let Rhaenyra gain her strength by flying to the Riverlands and letting her forces rally there, because that makes sense, because he's got the most battle experience out of any of her friends or enemies combined. He's got the most experience, right? The most experience in dragon warfare, and that's what this is, dragon warfare. So not only has he not done that, and he's coming up with terrible plans, but also the blood he's going to kill Aemond? What? That doesn't make any sense. Aemond's not the king's heir. You want to take out... Not Aemond. He does that because Rhaenyra says, I want Aemond. And it's like, it makes Daemon even more of a whipped dog, because he's like, oh, I'm just going to do what Rhaenys says. I'm going to do what Rhaenyra says, not what's the best thing for the war. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Why is Daemon doing... That's not Daemon. Come on, don't do that. That's why I'm upset. It's not like, because I'm not saying the show's a failure. This is going to suck. It's going to be just like The Witcher or just like The Boys or whatever, which, speaking of which, that show is terrible. It's not even... I don't even know what The Boys is. I mean, I do. I watched the first season, and I watched the second season. I watched like a couple episodes of the second season, and there was this person who was supposed to be a Nazi, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. They're going to show an actual racist person and like on the TV show? Racism is terrible, right? It's one of the worst things in the world, but it can be the funniest type of humor. It can be the funniest humor you will ever hear, because it's ridiculous. A lot of the times, racism is just so ridiculous. It comes from the slightest bit of maybe truth, but most of the time, it's just ridiculous. Racist jokes are always ridiculous, right? So to me, that's funny. What was I talking about? That was probably the worst. I forgot what I was talking about of this episode, or this podcast. All right, look, we've been going on for 2 hours. And I told you guys that I could go on as long as I want to. And I still do mean to do that. We've gone on. We streamed for 2 hours and 11 minutes. I'm going to toss this up. Make that disappear. Leave this chat up. Talk amongst yourselves, please. I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. And then I'll be right back. It'll take me probably 7 minutes. And then I'll come back and we'll round out the episode. I'll give you all something else to look at. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I'll put this right here. All right, yeah, so look at that. I'll be right back. I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. I'm in the chat, though. I'm talking to you on the chat. Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Please hang out with me. I'm like Daemon. Please, please. Deku UG here. What the hell you talking about, bro? I always comment about how I like your username. I'm easy to troll. How about you go somewhere else? Because I'm talking about my emotional state and I talk about how I like the show. How's that easy to troll? Because I get mad? That's probably it. I mean, wait, what? To have people like that come. Oh. But not really, dude. There's like 70 people watching me, and the show just came out, and there was like 4 million people watching the show, probably, at least. Anyway, let's cap this off with questions. Anybody that's still watching right now, if you have a question that I didn't get to, I'm all up in the chat right now, so please submit it, and I'll answer it. Thank you for watching so far. Everybody that has watched. Also, thank you for all the super chats. There was a bunch of super chats that came in. I really appreciate that. John Paul says, for me, episode was a 7.7 out of 10. 90% of the episode, but the blood and cheese scene was a 2 out of 10. So bland and mid, but overall, liked the chat, but like you like the episode, but not the blood and cheese scene. I don't know if I would call the blood and cheese scene a 2 out of 10. I think what irked me more was the scenes with Daemon, and it's not Matt Smith's acting. It's definitely not Luke Tittenser, Elliot Tittenser's acting. It's none of the acting in the scenes that like has me to have issues with the episode. It's almost never the acting. It's the only time I can think of specifically the acting gave me a problem in the earlier seasons was Sophie Turner as a child. Like her acting was horrendous, and she says that. So the acting's never bad. It's the writing choices for what they have the character do in the scene. So like Daemon sort of waiting on Rhaenys to get back, and she's like clearly tired and exhausted, but somehow he is not smart enough to realize that flying to King's Landing with Melees in his Dragon Caraxes is a terrible idea. Like that's what bothers me about the episode. Just the Daemon scenes. It's not the blood and cheese, to be completely honest. Like, the only thing I have a problem with that is the Daemon scene. Daemon says, yeah, kill Aemond. And the only reason why he says kill Aemond is because I guess it makes sense. It's like Rhaenyra says, I want Aemond. And Daemon's like, okay, if I do that, I'll make Rhaenyra happy. And maybe part of his motivation in doing that is not that he's like a whipped dog, so to speak. It's more so that he wants to make Rhaenyra happy. He wants to get back in her good graces because he choked her. And remember, that's probably not something that you should do to your queen, right? So maybe he's trying to do something to make up for that, right? But that's the only thing I don't like about the blood and cheese scene is that Daemon is involved, and Daemon says to kill Aemond. Like, obviously, he ends up saying, if you can't get Aemond, then get Jaehaerys, like, bring the head, right? Bring someone's head, someone related to Aegon's head. But it's like, that's the only thing I didn't like about it, is the Daemon aspect. The writing choice to make Daemon the one go physically to the city and then say what he says, which is to kill Aemond. Like, I don't mind that Daemon goes to the city. I didn't mind that he's the one that gets Blood, who was not a former gold cloak, but a current gold cloak, and drops the sack of gold on the bars, and he's like, you won't payment. Like, none of that bothered me. What bothered me is that he decides that it's Aemond that has to die, even though he knows that that's not... Maybe that's why he ends up, maybe for the TV show, that maybe that's why they make it so that he is so hell-bent on killing Aemond, is because in those moments, that's what Rhaenyra said. In canon, that's one of the last time he sees Rhaenyra, except for when they take the city. It's like, he's off in the Riverlands. I'm assuming the next episode he's going to go to Harrenhal and take Harrenhal. I know he's going to take Harrenhal, the city. he ends up meeting with the chubby guy with the gray hair at the table. Daemon's sitting at the table, and he's like, hopefully dragons can make you guys think more clear-headed. That scene from that trailer, that's Simon Strong. And when Daemon takes Harrenhal, he doesn't kill him. When he leaves Harrenhal, Simon Strong's still alive. And then when Aemon takes it, Aemon kills him. So in canon, Aemon actually challenges him to a duel. Aemon's like, hey, yo, Simon Strong, dog, I know you're loyal to the Blacks. That's why you bent the knee to Daemon so quickly. I'm going to fight you. And Daemon 1v1s him and kills him immediately. Like, it's an easy fight. He makes quick work of him. So, yeah. Yeah, overall, I'll give the episode, like I said, a 7.5 and 8 out of 10. Like, I think the episode was great. I rank it probably 6 on my favorites. Like, number 1 is episode 8 of season 1. Then episode 4, then probably 9, 10, and then 1. So it's still in my top 10 for sure, even though there's only been 11 episodes. Well, Mark, what makes out your other top 10? All the other 8 episodes of the show. But yeah, no, I'm a super fan. I'm tempering. What I've learned is that I'm just not as easily impressed as I was when I was younger. So when I watch something, I'm a harsher critic, right? I guess. But I'm not trying to be like or sound like someone who's just talking negatively about the show. I'm trying to explain my opinions, why I feel that way. I think that's important to know that I'm always going to think that Game of Thrones is the greatest TV show of all time. And any show tied into Game of Thrones is going to be closely, if not the greatest TV show of all time. It's hard as writers. When I was watching the episode and I paused and I'm like, wait, why did they do that? Or like I'm trying to double check, look up lore stuff. I'm like, wait, is that correct? I try to also go, oh yeah, they want me to do this. They want people like me to question if that's true in lore or what's going to happen next, and kind of keep us on our toes, keep us unexpected. Like I saw someone in the chat comment said, I love this episode, 10 out of 10. I loved it because it has that mystery, the music and everything, and you kind of don't know what's going to happen. You're always on edge. Perfect way to put it. That's a perfect way to put it. I agree with that. It's like that. It's just I try to put myself, getting back on track, I try to put myself in the writer's shoes of like why they decided to do so. I think that's really what it is. It's like they know we expect Daemon to be like how he was in Fire and Blood and kind of how he was in season 1, so they threw us for a loop by making him sort of have an anxiety attack, a panic attack of like having to sit there and wait for Rhaenyra, not knowing if she's dead or alive, but she's been gone for days and like he doesn't really know what to do, so he's kind of like not thinking rationally. And look at me, I've had some time to think about it, so I kind of am starting to see the writer's writing choices. But yeah, that's one of the side effects or one of the negative drawbacks with the live streaming right after the episode comes out is I haven't had really a chance to I just haven't had time to formulate my thoughts all the way. That's why my review breakdown videos, I think, get more views than my live stream ones, is because I haven't really put all my thoughts into it yet. But yeah, it's just, it's a rough 2 years waiting on the show. So then if it's not absolutely perfect in all aspects, at least in the very first episode, it's going to get like sort of rained down upon with negative comments. It's a lot easier to say a negative opinion and then get more likes. And I've kind of been testing that theory on Twitter. All of my recent Twitter posts have been like sassy, like retweeting somebody, but then correcting them to what I think they should have said. And they've got more likes than all of my tweets combined. So people actually want you to be negative. People want you to be roasty, and people want you to sort of talk crap because that's what people want. That's like Cat Williams at the start of this year broke everybody's brain. They're like, yo, we want trash talk, and we want you to talk crap about everybody. And the fandoms for Game of Thrones was already like that. Like I said, YouTubers like AnaaaRodarte and everybody he has on his Friday live streaming show. He's probably live streaming right now. But every YouTuber is associated with him never talks about stuff they like. They only talk about stuff they either used to like or stuff they hate. So that's very popular. And like I said, it's interesting. Yeah. It's been a long day. It's a good point to wrap up this stream. The next stream will be, I would say at the very least, this like 2 hours. This one was 2.5. This one might be like a longer one than usual. The episodes are supposed to be pretty long. I will say that the more events that happened in the episode, the more exciting the episode is. Obviously, the more exciting, the longer, more in depth the stream will be. But thank you for watching me so far. Shout out to everybody that's joined in the chat. Shout out to everybody that's going to watch this afterwards. Real quick, shout out to the Northwestern member, the infamous Chrissy York, BJ Hendricks, Diku Yujika, Jean, Shellin. People that I just see that are still here right now. Shout out. You guys are awesome. Hanging in there with me. I get distracted a lot, so I know that's hard to listen to someone who forgets about what they're saying all the time. I also am the only person here, and there's not a bunch of special effects going on with me. Like, I don't got a bunch of banners flying across my face. I don't have pictures of the show for you guys to look at. So I know that's not as exciting as and entertaining because of that. So I appreciate y'all watching me as long as you did. Next stream, I probably will have some of that stuff. I probably will have banners. I probably will have pictures of the show that I'm talking about. My office flooded, so my setup, my backdrop that I had worked on for a year to craft is destroyed, and I haven't had the no, that's not true. I have had the time to fix it. I just haven't done it yet. The room floods. I don't want to set it back up and then it flood again. It's crazy. It's like the backyard needs to be regraded, but we can't because it has to be approved by the HOA, and we have to pay money for the HOA to approve the shit that we're going to then have to pay for after that. So backyard's probably going to stay like that, and I'm probably going to put a French drain back there. So this is going to be the backdrop, but I'll try to make the live stream look cooler. Like, I'll try to have more stuff going on. Like, maybe I'll put this in the background so that that'll be playing. Maybe I'll do something like, let's see, we'll do that, we'll do this, and then we'll put that, and then maybe I'll drop that. Maybe if we go back to Winterfell, maybe I'll have this down here, and like you guys can watch that instead of looking at my face and my toothless mouth. And shout out to everybody. Thank you for watching A Long Night. House of the Dragon is here. The long night is over. So we have 7 more weeks of this, plus like a good 2 months that I'll still be feeling high off the season from, making content for. And then it won't be long before Dunk and Egg comes out. And Dunk and Egg is my favorite. Dunk is my favorite A Song of Ice and Fire character next to your mother. Your mother is also my favorite Song of Ice and Fire character. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, thank y'all for rocking with me. If my friends who follow me that are a part of this show watch this and they think I'm being negative and talking crap about the show, I'm not. Not at all. I'll send you guys a message on Instagram to clarify my thoughts because it does sound like that's what I was doing, and that's not the case. I was just trying to explain very clearly why I was disappointed and how I was disappointed in certain aspects. But overall, I rank this a top, was it 6 or 5? Was it 5th or 6th episode? I can't remember. But it's in my top 10 episodes of all of House of the Dragon. All 11 episodes are my favorite. Like, if you want to throw in Thrones, some Thrones episodes, then it's still probably pretty close in the top 10. It's still an amazing episode. And the main reason being is because I had to wait 2 years to find out what was going to happen when Aemon gets back to King's Landing. And he's keeping up that mentality of like, yup, I did it. Yup, I should be the king. Yup, it's going to be fun when I get to Harrenhal. And when he fights Daemon. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. And thank you for rocking with me. I'm going to go to bed. And then I'm going to wake up and go on a run. And then I'm going to make a video breakdown on House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 1. Thank you. Along that, Saltrizas Pustari Iskos Naor. Please, if you want a shirt, it greatly helps me out. They're listed down below at my Teespring shop and also on my Instagram story. Thank you for watching. Along that, Saltrizas Pustari Iskos Naor. The stream will be better somehow next week, whether that be more entertaining visually or more interactive because I'll have a phone number that people can call. We'll see. I'm going to keep you guessing.